Welcome to The Explainer. So glad you're here. We're jumping right into something that is, honestly, absolutely mind-blowing. We're looking at what happens when you take digital blocks, specifically Minecraft blocks, and literally translate them into life-changing, real-world assets. Sounds totally absurd, right? The whole idea that clicking a mouse in a virtual sandbox could somehow manifest physical, tangible rewards? But as you're about to see, the stakes in this digital tournament, they are very, very real.
Just to put the sheer scale of this into perspective, we are talking about a grand prize worth $250,000. 250 grand. And this isn't for some virtual currency, it's not a shiny digital trophy, it's for an actual physical house. Literally $250,000 on the line, just for being the absolute best digital architect in the room. So, that brings us to the ultimate question, which really drives this whole explainer. If you build it in a video game, would you actually want it in real life? Because, it's one thing to build some crazy fantasy castle, but it's a completely different ballgame to draft a real-world asset that you're actually trying to win. We're going to see exactly how these competitors balance their wild imaginations with precise, real-world accuracy to secure their futures.
Here's our roadmap for the competition today. We'll kick things off with virtual blocks, real prizes, then move into the Tesla Build Challenge, designing a dream vacation, the brutal 10-minute speed sprint, and finally, the ultimate house finale.
All right, part 1, virtual blocks, real prizes. It is time to meet the digital masterminds who've poured thousands of hours into their craft. We've got an incredibly talented lineup here. There's Quentin, a known champion in the community. Nico, a total veteran streaming his builds for a decade. Taco, our go-to expert for digital vehicles. Zekis, known for his crazy, artistic, organic designs. And Todd, who specializes in living figures. These guys walked into a room, whipped off their blindfolds, and found computer setups literally with their names printed on them. They were ready to grind. And the prizes they're fighting for? A brand new Tesla, an all-expenses-paid dream vacation anywhere in the world, and of course, that $250,000 house.
Moving on to part 2, the Tesla Build Challenge. For this first round, our builders get a strict 3-hour window to construct a digital Tesla. And honestly, this brilliantly shows off the strategic depth of the competition, because the judges aren't just looking for pretty blocks. They're evaluating on 3 very specific criteria. First up, flair. They want excitement and creativity in the presentation. Second is functionality. Does the thing actually work? Like, can you make the horn honk or the windshield wipers move using in-game logic? And finally, accuracy. Getting those perfect proportions so it actually looks like the real car, not some squished cartoon version.
These super strict criteria instantly split the room into 2 totally opposite strategies. On one hand, you have Quentin. He didn't just build a car sitting there. He built this massive landscape where the Tesla is literally diagonally jumping off a cliff just to avoid hitting a chicken on the road. He simulated wind around the vehicle and everything. Then, on the flip side, we have Taco, our vehicle expert. Taco sank his entire 3 hours into creating the absolute most flawlessly accurate exterior shape possible. But to pull that off, he had to entirely sacrifice the interior and all the working mechanics.
Quentin summed up his whole vibe perfectly. He said, "I actually made it like in action. It has a story too." And wow, the judges were completely blown away by that narrative focus. I mean, Taco's exterior was undeniably perfect, sure, but Quentin's ability to inject this compelling story and simulated motion into static blocks, that completely won the judges over. With this crazy jump over a chicken, Quentin secured himself the real-life, brand-new Tesla. And even more importantly, the very first seat in the ultimate house finale. All right, on to part 3, designing a dream vacation.
With only 2 seats left for the final round, the prompt shifted radically. The prize is now an all-expenses-paid trip anywhere in the world. And man, the ambition scaled up massively. Just look at what they managed to pull off. Taco built this lush South African island, complete with penguins, buried treasure, and a custom Starry Night sky for camping. Nico basically tried to build Disneyland, crafting a massive, functional Splash Mountain roller coaster you could actually ride in-game. Todd put together a beautiful Bahamas dining experience with custom fish dishes and a working sailing raft. But then there's Zekis. He went rogue and built an aggressive, dynamic volcano that he was actively parachuting into.
Zekis operated with just absolute confidence here. When the judges noticed his flaming parachute build included a flag, he casually dropped, "Yeah, that's my victory flag." Talk about swagger. He was so sure of his dynamic, lava-filled terrain that he pre-built his own victory celebration right into the architecture. And you know what? It totally worked. The judges ate up the visual wow factor and that dynamic sense of adventure. Zeekies easily won the dream vacation, and he locked down the second spot in the finals. Next up, Part 4, the 10-minute speed sprint.
So, 2 finalists down, 1 spot remaining. What happens when you strip away the luxury of a 3-hour time limit? Well, the remaining 3 contestants, Nico, Todd, and Taco, were thrown a massive curveball. They're fighting for the very last spot in the house finale. They can build literally whatever they want, but they only have 10 minutes. Think about how much your strategy would have to shift here. You can't rely on massive sprawling landscapes anymore. You have to rely purely on rapid instinct and raw execution.
That ticking clock created a timeline of just pure panic. At the 10-minute mark, the wild concepts are chosen instantly. Todd goes for a Wagyu steak, Nico a PS5, and Taco a Japanese torii gate. By minute 5, the room is dead silent. Nothing but frantic keyboard typing. They're using command codes as fast as humanly possible to spawn blocks. At 1 minute left, total panic sets in. Todd realizes his steak might be way too big and starts frantically trying to add rosemary garnishes to fix the scale. And at 0 minutes, hands up immediately or face total disqualification. The tension was just off the charts.
This round brilliantly illustrates the wild variety that comes from intense time constraints. Nico somehow managed to create a PS5 that actually had a working power button with in-game sound effects, which is incredible functionality for just 10 minutes. Todd built this giant Wagyu steak, which, yeah, looked great from a distance, though the judges joked that if he'd made it well done, it would have been an automatic loss. But then there was Taco. He built a gorgeous Japanese torii gate, complete with a path and a celebratory gong.
But here's the thing. Taco didn't win this sprint with mechanical perfection. He won it with an incredibly smart, highly compelling story. He explained to the judges that his build represented a journey, and that if he won, he wanted to send his sister to Japan because she had always been his biggest supporter. Now, the judges immediately called him out for emotionally pandering to them, but they fully admitted it worked. It was a brilliant play. Taco secured that 3rd and final spot in the ultimate showdown.
And that brings us to Part 5, the ultimate house finale.
All right, here we go, the massive climax of our explainer. Our 3 finalists, Quentin, Zeekies, and Taco, were taken outside, blindfolds were removed, and they were finally shown the actual real-world house they were competing for. The rules for this final round were brutally complex. First, they had to blindly analyze this brand new physical property. Second, map the exact layout, dimensions, and all the unique quirks entirely in their heads with absolute precision. And third, run back to their computers and recreate the entire architectural structure in just 90 minutes. It's wild.
This final round set up an absolutely fascinating clash of backgrounds. I mean, Taco is in the mix for sure, but look at the stark contrast between Zeekies and Quentin for a second. Zeekies is a university student who is literally studying for his master's degree in architecture. His life dream is to be a real-world architectural draftsman. And he's going head-to-head against Quentin, an 18-year-old kid who still lives with his mom, is completely self-taught, and relies purely on raw intuition from thousands of hours messing around in a digital sandbox. It's formal academic training versus raw prodigy talent.
And the sheer amount of variables they had to manage perfectly? Overwhelming. They couldn't just build an empty shell, right? The judges wanted creative risk. So they had to map out empty rooms and instantly decide how to furnish them. They had to figure out how to replicate complex real-world appliances, like sinks, stoves, and microwaves, using only chunky Minecraft blocks. They had to nail every tiny exterior detail, the backyard shed, the exact placement of the AC unit, the width of the front porch. And they had to do the whole shebang before that 90-minute timer hit 0. As the clock ticked down on these digital architects fighting for the keys to a literal physical house, it leaves us with an incredibly profound realization. If a self-taught teenager and a master's student can use a video game to draft their way into actual real-world real estate, the lines between our digital talents and our physical realities aren't just blurring anymore. They're disappearing entirely. Think about it. If digital drafting can earn you the keys to a real-world property, where exactly does the virtual world end and reality begin? It is a fascinating thought and definitely one I highly encourage you to explore further. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.